After 1973's Uneven on the Third Day, Electric Light Orchestra breaks out of their rut and delivers one of their strongest albums, 1974's Eldorado. Eldorado features a coherent story of a man who is disillusioned with his life. The album is a tragedy and manages to pull off a real pathos. Musically, the album alternates between bright and cheery and dark and sinister in order to illustrate the difference between the two worlds featured in this story. Every song is memorable in its own way, and both the vocals and instrumentation are in top form here. The lyrics are able to illustrate the story clearly without being blunt or devoid of imagery. The album manages to keep a pretty quick pace. Eldorado is not a double album like most story albums, and thus it has very little slack in its storytelling. Eldorado Overture is an exciting instrumental piece that acts as an introduction to Eldorado. This song is basically the opening credits of a movie. It sets the tone and prepares the audience for what is next. Eldorado Overture has a theme of musically descending into sleep and reappears as a leitmotif to convey the action of either falling asleep or waking up later on. The song also features a narrator who reads off a short speech about dreams. Can't Get It Out of My Head is the opening scene of the story. Like many great tales, it begins with a man living a boring life in a sleepy city at night. Staring at the ocean, the protagonist wishes to escape the monotony of his life and his job in the bank by imagining up famous characters from storybooks and fairy tales. He decides to try to escape the morning's life by retreating into sleep in his dream world. The song overall has a very dreamy and melodic sound to it, carried by Jeff Lynne's sleepy-sounding vocals. This is one of Electric Light Orchestra's best songs. Boy Blue starts out with a triumphant fanfare as the song starts as the protagonist is welcomed into the dream world. The lyrics seemingly tell the story of a famous knight returning from war and vowing to never go to war again. But the lyrics also belie another meaning, which continues to tell the story of Eldorado. The opening fanfare and the lyrics serve to highlight the protagonist's jubilation at being in his dream world. The part where Boy Blue says what he saw while he was away is representative of the protagonist's disillusionment with the real world. The ending, where Boy Blue says that as no man should be stricken with fear, it should be that he walks with no care in the world, represents the protagonist's embracement of the dream world, and his abandonment of his arms represent his conviction never to return to the real world. Musically, the sound is bounding and jubilant. Very triumphant and welcoming is another great song from the album. In Laredo Tornado, the protagonist is once again in the real world. He once more expresses his disillusionment with the real world by lamenting his life in the city, as opposed to being out in nature. The tornado in the song is a metaphor for pollution and monolithic buildings. The song also makes it clear that once the protagonist has gotten a taste of his dream world, he is now more disillusioned than ever with the real world. Musically, the song is actually really hard. The drums are very prominent and surprisingly funky. The main guitar riff is great. Jeff Lynne's vocals on the chorus really flow to the upper end of his range, and offset backing vocals during parts of the song really add to the off-feeling of it. Poor Boy, the Greenwood, begins with jubilant music as the protagonist once again re-enters his dream world. This time, the lyrics tell the story of people celebrating having overthrown their oppressive nobles and having a big party. The overthrowing the rich nobles represents the protagonist escaping his bank job in his dreams, and Maid Marian represents his desire for untainted romance that can be found in dreams. At the end of the song, Eldorado Overture plays once more as the protagonist wakes up, and this side of the album ends. In Mr. Kingdom, the protagonist ponders his predicament and realizes that if someone goes to sleep without waking back up, that they will die. Despite this, he still calls on Mr. Kingdom, apparently an embodiment of the dream world, to come back and to help him escape. The main verses sound very similar to the Beatles' song Across the Universe. This could be in reference to the song's theme of disillusionment and the lyric of Nothing's Gonna Change My World, as the protagonist hopes to escape his disillusionment with the real world. The lyrics are great, and the song has a really good guitar riff, but the overwhelming similarity of verses to Across the Universe make this one of the weaker songs on the album musically. In Nobody's Child, the fanfare from Boy Blue plays once again as the protagonist enters the dream world. Here he meets a prostitute whom he initially tries to resist before giving into and enjoying sleeping with her. This represents how the protagonist is able to be free in his dreams, and his actions are completely free of consequences. Musically, this song is heavy on the lyrics and backing chorus. It's not the most memorable song of the album, but it's still a very solid album track. Illusion in G minor has the protagonist tell a counselor about some of his dreams. This song does not solve the plot as much as the other songs, but does serve to ponder how things in dreams may have greater meanings or may need to be taken at face value. Musically, it has a very catchy chorus and a classic rock and roll feel. In Eldorado, the protagonist decides, despite it being fatal, he would much rather stay in his dream world, Eldorado, than live in the real world. He ponders if when he dies he will go to heaven, which is something he seems to hope for at first. Eventually he realizes there's no afterlife for him, but resolves to go to sleep anyways, spending what time he has left before he dies in his dreams. The Eldorado Overture, now titled Eldorado Finale, plays once more as the narrator repeats parts of his speech from the beginning, this time delivering it as a eulogy. Musically, Eldorado also serves as the perfect finale. The sleepy ambience from I Can't Get It Out of My Head is back with a more sinister undercurrent. Jeff Lynne performs one of his most impressive vocal performances by delivering the operatic choruses, and lets his voice soar at the end of each one, similarly to Laredo Tornado. Eldorado is a very bittersweet and musically rewarding ending that wraps up the album's plot in a very logical manner. Okay, before we go on, let's look at the slave of the album. Now, as a lot of you can probably tell, this is the Mobile Fidelity MoFi version of Eldorado. I do not have currently the original, but I do hope to get it at some point. But here it is. The original didn't have this thing at the top that said original master recording, but otherwise it was basically the same, and it did have this kind of gold border. On the back, we got the same image kind of as the front from Wizard of Oz. It's very nice looking on both sides. I really like kind of the style. It does show kind of a dreamy quality of like the dream world from the album, even though nothing really from Wizard of Oz is directly mentioned in any of the sort of dream vignettes from the song. And you can tell that the MoFi versions of this album are individually numbered. I have copy 9002 down there. You can see there's some modern copyright stuff that wouldn't be here. There's nothing on the liner because they actually put this in a gatefold. I believe, if I'm not 100% sure, that the original had this on the liner, this on one side, and this on the other side. But here you got a very nice picture of the band in kind of a purplish, reddish, sort of, kind of almost wine red kind of hue. And it lists off each member, and also has a thing about this re-release. And then here it has the lyrics in that same sort of color with a kind of a nice kind of font for the titles, but then very clear font that you can read easily on the lyrics. I always like it when they don't over-embellish the font of the lyrics, where they can actually be read. See, there it is again. There it is again. I really quite like this. I like the E in Eldorado. I like the whole look of the thing. It is very nice, and this is actually a very kind of hefty sleeve for this release, but the original I think just had kind of a normal sleeve. But it is overall a very good looking package here. So, for my final reviews of the songs of the album, I give Can't Get Out of My Head a 10 out of 10. Boy Blue, a 9 out of 10. Laredo Tornado, 9 out of 10. Poor Boy, the Greenwood, 10 out of 10. Mr. Kingdom, 7 out of 10. Nobody's Child, 7 out of 10. Illusion in G minor, 8 out of 10. And Eldorado, 10 out of 10. And overall, I give the album a 10 out of 10. My top 3 recommended songs from this album are I Can't Get Out of My Head, Eldorado, and Poor Boy, the Greenwood. If you want to see more videos like this one and album reviews, then please be sure to comment below and like and subscribe, as I do have more Electric Light Orchestra album reviews coming up, as well as reviews of albums by other artists. And I hope to see you in my next video, and thank you for watching.